If you clicked on this video because you're always the poorest person on your team, or you don't even know what Deadlock Macro is, or you are the richest person on the team but you want to get even richer, you're in the right place. Top friends, this is Metro. I've been playing high-level Deadlock for over a year, and today we're gonna go all over Macro. Where do I want to be on the map? When do I even join team fights? Or when do I farm? When do I split push? When do I try to attack a walker with my team? When do I do mid-boss? We're gonna start this guide at 8 minutes. If you're curious about anything before 8 minutes, I released a laning guide just recently that I'm gonna link in the comments below. So everything after laning stage is gonna be covered in this game. At the very basics of Macro, what is Deadlock Macro? Macro is your choices you make on the map. That includes everything from deciding when should I farm, when should I fight, should I take this fight, do I go back to base? It's basically everything that is not the in-game micro decisions or in-fight micro decisions, like what ability do I use in this fight right now, right? That is what we consider macro in MOBAs and Deadlock. You always do want to either fight or farm or push. If you're not doing any of those, you're not really doing anything on the map, right? So number one rule is I always want to do things. How do I get from point A to point B while being the most efficient? If you don't have a plan on what you want to do, you will waste time, and that time that you waste will accumulate over the game. That is a big part of the reason why some people just end up with more money, because they do things more efficiently, while some people might think for a second, right? Like they killed the creep camp and then you're like, what do I do now? Basically, what you want to do is you always want to think about the next thing you want to do. Assuming I kill this walker, do I go back? Do I keep on pushing? And you want to make those decisions over time and constantly. And that's really what makes Deadlock or MOBAs in general hard, right? So this is going to be very in-depth, and we're going to talk about a lot of things, but even then I won't be able to cover everything. So as always, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. So let's get into the very basics first. How do I decide what to do? Do I want to farm or do I want to fight? And that is kind of decided by the character you play. There's some characters that are very good at fighting early, and then there's some characters that are very good at farming, or characters that need a lot of farm, okay? So we're gonna get into the concept of carry versus support, which is gonna be its completely own video, which is Deadlock roles. So I'm just gonna assume you know what your character is good at, right? Like if you're a 7, you know you need money to get online and then continue fighting later, right? Or join the fights later. And I'm assuming that if you play Abrams, you know the character is very strong early and doesn't need a lot of farm to get online, right? Same for like something like a Dynamo and Ivy. So I'm gonna go over farming first here. And the most important tip I can give you is always prioritize the lane creeps first. The reason that is lane creeps will give you more money than anything else on the map at almost every point in the game. In the very late game, you can farm jungle really, really fast, and then it becomes less efficient to be on the lane. But even if you disregard the money differences, they provide you map control. And map control is going to help you get even more farm and win the game. But there is a caveat to that. There is a rule to that. There is a thing in this game called creep sharing. And the way creep sharing works is when you have one person on the lane, so let's assume you're alone in the lane, you get 100% of the souls, all the souls. And when you have 2 people on the lane, both people together each get 60%. So technically it is actually more efficient to have 2 people farm a lane once, because you end up with 100%, 120% of the overall money. Now is where the diminishing returns start. When you get 3 people in the lane, you will already start losing money. The overall value of the creeps that the lane give you will drop below 100%. You will lose money technically, right? A, by being together on that lane, and B, because there's probably other lanes that, you know, are not being farmed, jungle not being farmed. Does that mean I always want to have maximum of 2 people in the lane? Well, not necessarily, obviously, right? With 3 people on the lane, you will be able to push objectives. But the rule of thumb is, if you are farming, you want to have 2 people maximum on the lane. Any more than that is because you're looking for a fight or a gank, you're looking to kill one person, or you're looking to push a guardian or a walker, or you're looking to push their base, or you're already in a team fight. Or you want to defend an objective as multiple if the entire enemy team pushes. But if you're not in any of those scenarios, it is inefficient in terms of money for you and your team to be on the lane with more than 2 people. But a lot of the time, even in high ranks, what I notice is sometimes my lane mate or a player from another lane comes over and then really doesn't do much on the lane. Like, they're not really pushing, but they're not really looking for a kill, and then they just sit there, and you end up with 3 people in the lane, and every single wave you spend as 3 people in the lane, you're losing money. Next thing to do for farming, and this starts right at 8 minutes after laning, assuming you won or lost the lane, so you either killed the enemy guardian or the enemy killed your guardian, you want to start looking for sinner sacrifices. This is the second highest gold income in the game. If you do it really fast, it's technically a tiny bit better than lane creeps, but you shouldn't sacrifice the lane or your guardian to go for the sinners, right? But if you can, especially if you're a carry, you want to farm sinners at 8 minutes. Sinners do have downsides, okay? Sinners take HP away from you, so when you farm them, on most characters, unless you're Billy, for example, where you heal with every melee hit, you will lose HP. Plus, sinners and creeps in general are gonna drop what we call unsecured souls in Deadlock. And if you don't know what that is, I'll give you a short rundown. Unsecured souls is everything you earn from everything in the game that is not lane creeps, okay? So we're talking enemy hero kills, we're talking creep camps, we're talking sinner sacrifices, and we're also talking destructibles, boxes, okay? These are unsecured souls. And if you see those unsecured souls in your menu, those are the souls that you will drop if you die. And this is basically a punishment that Valve implemented for AFK farming. Well, not a punishment, a risk, right? You can't safely farm your own jungle, because if you get ganked and you lose unsecured souls, you will lose that money, right? It's like a mechanic that they implemented to encourage ganking enemy jungle, and so people wouldn't AFK farm jungle the entire game. The way to get rid of unsecured souls is they tick down over time. So over time, you will lose more and more, and once you have 0 unsecured souls, if you die, you will not drop a single soul. But the best way to get rid of them is use them to buy. Okay, so what I'm saying is, let's say you're farming sinners at 8 minutes. Your lane is over and you farm a bunch, like you maybe take your double sinners or 1 extra sinner, and you end up with like 1,000 unsecured souls. And overall, let's say you have like 1,600 souls, okay? You can very easily go to the shop, buy a 1,600 item, and all the unsecured souls are going to be spent last. But if you only have 1,600, they're all going to be gone, right? So once you have like a threshold for an item and you have unsecured souls, best thing to do is go back to base or forward shops and spend the money so you don't lose it in a team fight. Which it's still gonna happen, and it happens to me on the daily. It's literally a meme on my stream where the number of bags that I drop. That is basically the essentials. Now, I'll explain this a bit more in detail. You really want to give the sinners to your carries. I'm not saying you should never touch them if you are like a support player, like a Dynamo, for example, but you really want to give them to players that benefit from all the stats it can get, the sinners can give, okay? And those characters are usually the characters that are also like the carry characters that need the most farm. Examples are Victor, Seven, Haze, Wraith, Infernus, but there's a lot more, and there's like scenarios where you want to take them as Abrams, right? Like Abrams can also get really good with money. Just keep in mind that if a person on your team needs the souls more than you probably want to give them the sinners. Now, what is the most efficient way to farm in general as like a carry character, or to farm? Let's say you are a carry character, let's say you had a bad lane and you're lacking behind in money a bit. What do I do? There is a thing called side lane farming, and you probably heard this if you watched any streams or watched like some educational YouTube videos. People refer to, I'll take the side lane. What does that mean? That really means that after laning stage, you send that person to one of the side lanes and farm the lane, and in between creep waves, they will go into the jungle, farm the jungle. And that's the entire process. And that's usually on average the fastest way you can get souls, because you'll be alone on the side lane, right? So you'll get 100% of the creep farm, and there is usually camps around you, near you, that you can farm safely in between waves. So what you would do is, you would go to that lane, push the wave, so it pushes into the enemy side of the map, and after that's done, you go back to your side of the map and farm some creep camps, or if you're ahead, you can also go into the enemy side of the jungle, and for example, on the left side of the map, farm their church camp. So you push the creep wave into the enemy side of the map, and then you can decide, depending on how the state of the map is, and you always want to look at your map, to farm the enemy side of the map, where, you know, I go into the church here and push this church and wait for the creep wave to come back. This is something you can do if you're ahead, if you're sure you can get out in time if someone ganks you, or you're sure you can like win at least a 1v1 or get out in a 1v2. Or, right, you push the wave towards their side and then you go back to farm your own creep camps. And I know that sounds very simple, but there's really a lot of nuance to it. For example, if you're behind, but you see, let's say on the other side of the map that the enemy team is fighting, you can do the same thing where you push the creep wave a bit further, maybe even to the walker, and then you can steal their farm anyways, even though you're technically behind, right? Because the enemy is occupied. And the more people you see on the other side of the map, the more freedom you see on your side of the map. That's really the basic, like looking at the map a lot and planning out what to do next, right? Like just on a very basic level for farming, right? Let's say I'm farming the Sinner. I really don't have to, I can look for the enemy if someone is around, but what I'm really doing here is now, what do I do next, right? Like, what do I do next? Do I go for the, probably at 8 minutes, I'm probably going to go for the next Sinners. But, you know, maybe if the wave is like still pushed to their walker, I could also go over and farm the enemy Sinner here, right? And steal their money, which is like worth double technically, because you're getting the money and you're stealing the money from the enemy side of the map, right? That's how you want to think about farming enemy jungle camps. There's obviously millions of scenarios, right? Every game is different. Every team you have is different. So there's really no one easy answer. And that's what makes macro macro. And that's why the best players in the game are the best players in the game, because they just make the right choices most of the time. And some people are really good at making choices about farming. That's why they play carry characters, and some people are really good at making choices of, should I fight here, right? Or they're really good at choices of like, I will take this gank and win my team, that team fight, right? But back to the meta at hand, farming, who takes side lanes, right? It's usually the carry that needs a lot of farm, or you want to give it to someone that is behind in money. Like, let's say you're at a bad laning stage, you go into the side lane, you're behind in money, and that's why you take the side lane. Now, there are a few other things that make for great side laners. Great side laners are characters that are great in 1v1s that can push the enemy back very easily. I can give you a few examples, Mirage and Infernus, right? If they sit on the side lane, they both have a good escapes, a tornado and a flame dash to get out if they're in trouble. But if someone shows up and wants to 1v1, you know, both of those characters are great in 1v1 scenarios, so they can very easily take that, right? So they're usually, side laners are usually long-range carry characters. They can put out decent damage long range, because I can sit on this side of the map here and farm this creep camp over here. And if someone comes, I can decide, can I push them out and harass them, or do I have to back out? For the same reason, someone like an Abrams is not a great side laner, because A, Abrams mostly wants to fight, and B, Abrams is like a close range tank, right? So if Abrams had to push the side lane, he's not very fast at farming creeps, obviously, right? And he has to get very close, which means maybe I'm suddenly over here, and then he's in a bigger risk of dying, right? Side laners are also characters that have usually decent movement, so they can rotate towards mid pretty fast, right? Most of the action on the map naturally is gonna revolve around middle, right? Because everything revolves around the central place. If you look at the map, the middle point is the point where you can get the fastest to from anywhere on the map, just by simple geometry. Now, who farms jungle? Like, who wants to farm jungle? It's actually every character in the game in this game. There's not a dedicated jungler role like in other MOBAs, but some characters are faster to farm jungle with than other characters. Number one hero right now for jungle is probably 7. He's like, once you get to like max power surge and you have a few items, he's like the fastest jungler in the game, right? Then characters like Wraith are really good, but even other characters like Pocket or Ivy are great for jungling, right? Because on Ivy, you just put down a Katsu bomb, you can clear a creep camp insanely fast. Pocket can nuke creep camps really fast in the early game, right? So this is really like a character-specific thing. Everyone can do it, and this really will come over time when you play more games. When you go into the jungle, you will realize when you can farm the jungle efficiently, right? Can I walk to this tier 3 camp and farm it in a reasonable time? If it feels too long for you to get the money, it is probably too long, right? It's like an inner clock that you want to have in your head. And if it feels really good and really fast when you clear the jungle, that was probably a great time to jungle. Before we get into the next topic, I'll just give you like a really efficient jungle route, and we'll make this easy. I'll get on 7, and I'll just give you like one of the main routes that I usually take once I get enough farm. And this is usually, again, like once I get around power surge, right, and maybe I have spirit lifesteal. This is a bit high in money. you could start this earlier. But I'll show you one jungle route that I can take after laning stage, once I get a bit of farm, to get money insanely fast. And it's gonna be a very basic one. I come to this, and usually this side of the map, like this jungle, is left untouched until like a bit later, because it doesn't have sinners, by the way. So there's this right side jungle, like right bottom jungle, it's usually untouched because there's not sinners, and it's pretty deep into your territory, right? So it's pretty safe usually, whereas the left side jungle with the sinners is pretty easy to invade because there's not a lot of distance between them and you, okay, if that makes sense. So usually I come here, and if this tier 3 camp is up, I can already start farming this, right? If I have cultist, I sack cultist, and then I just clear this jungle camp really quickly, and then I go next, right? Already have the next jungle camp in mind, which is the tier 2. Farm this, and then I go next. And as you notice, and I'm not even doing this like super well right now, but if you do this efficiently, right? And if you do tech like sliding, for example, on this hill, right? Or sliding on the stairs, I can start clearing this jungle camp and this entire side of the jungle incredibly quickly on 7. And I didn't do this 100% efficiently. If I did do this most efficiently, this is like an insane amount of farm, right? And that's just like one route that I have. And then after that, if I'm like kind of low, right now I have like a lot of unsecured souls. So if I'm kind of low, I would go back to base, you know, pick up some boxes on the way and spend my money and heal up. Or, right, if I'm still like looking healthy, or there's like a fight breaking out like closer to me, I would then like go to the secret shop, buy in the forward secret shop, and join the team fight. That would just be one example of like what a jungle route would look like. So you're just getting from one source of souls to the next one as fast as possible. And that's all it really is. And again, in every game, it is going to look differently. Some jungle camps will be up and some won't be. And it's on you to make the choices of like, is this probably the most efficient, right? Or is this like close to maximum efficiency? And that's all that farming macro really is, other than the fact that you're still part of your team and you still want to be ready to fight at all points, right? We'll get into that in a second, like why we want to fight or when do we want to fight. But again, in general, on carries, you want to probably avoid fighting big team fights unless the fight is really close to you, or the fight is very one-sided for your team and you know you can just win and clean up, right? Or come in and clean up. Or you are at a point in your build where you feel like, oh, I'm very far ahead in money, right? Like if you had a really good lane start and you had in money, of course you want to show up if your team is struggling or in a fight and you want to show up, right? So just because you are a carry character in this scenario does not mean you shouldn't join fights, okay? You just want to do it safely. Like probably not the best idea to join the fight if you have 2k unsecured and you're half health, right? Because then the chance of you dying and giving all the money you just farmed to the enemy is really high. Then you probably like, you know, buy in the forward secret shop and then join the fight. But just to reiterate at the end of this, lane over jungle always. And this is a mistake I see in every rank where people get so lost in jungle farming that they deprioritize lanes, and the money you get from lanes is faster for most of the game. It also helps you actually earn more, because it will push the creep wave to the enemy and will give you more map control. It will help your team by putting pressure on the enemy, and the enemy has to react, right? You don't want to let your walker take a lot of damage because you're sitting on a jungle camp, right? And you most definitely don't want to give up a walker because you're not done farming your tier 3 camp that is right next to the walker, okay? Another thing I think I should mention in general, macro-wise, you see these boxes lying around the map. The longer you play the game, the more you will learn like good box farming routes, but I want to mention a few, right? Like while you're farming jungle camps, you can always efficiently just walk past like these boxes, slide past these boxes and get some more money that way. Those will add up over time. And some characters like Calico are actually really, really fast at doing this, right? But don't ignore these boxes, but also don't usually go out of your way to just farm them, right? They don't give as many souls as lane and even jungle, right? They do give quite a decent amount if you include them in your routes that you take. Route to join a team fight, route to, you know, the next jungle camp to farm. And the one thing I should really mention is this in middle is like the most insane farm. This spawns at 10 minutes together with the mid boss, and then it spawns every 2 minutes after, I think. I don't want to lie. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But this mid box farm is insane. It's like the highest souls per minute you can get anywhere on the map. Plus you get like a lot of the gold statue buffs, right? Which gives you extra buffs. Scenario number 2. You are a roamer and ganker character, okay? And that could be anyone from Abrams to Ivy to Dynamo, or you just like playing really aggressive. Even on a character that is arguably really good at farming, like Mina, you can roam around and look for a lot of kills, and that's like playstyle choices. What is roaming and ganking? Its terms, roaming is walking around the map, rotating from lane to lane to put pressure on objectives or to try to go for kills or helping out your teammates in fights. And ganking is going to another lane with the sole purpose of, or going into the enemy jungle or your own jungle with the sole purpose of finding an enemy to kill. That is ganking. And what do those characters usually do? How would you play a roamer and ganker properly? As I explained earlier, the middle of the map is the point to where you can get to everywhere fastest. So a lot of the time, roamers and gankers will on average be in the middle of the map a lot, okay? Which means if a carry of yours is occupying the side lane, if you're someone like Abrams, you will stay around the middle a lot. You will still go sometimes and farm jungle camps, but you will end up looking for kills in the middle area of the map a lot, and you will be participating in a lot of team fights. Like this entire scenario, or this entire playstyle is great on pick-off characters and supports that don't need as much money to get online. So other examples would be something like Holiday or Paradox, or again, something like a Dynamo, where they are either really good at all points in the game, or they're really good at getting that pick off, right? There's really no point in ganking if you're like, let's say a 7 and you don't have any farm, because like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna walk up to them and they're gonna run away from you, right? Even if you put the stun on them, there's a delay. You probably won't catch them until like later when you're farmed and you're really fast, right? So this is great on pick-off characters like Paradox or Holiday that initiate and get a grab on the enemy with the ultimate. Kelvin, another example that comes to mind. And the beauty about Deadlock is Deadlock allows a lot of characters to play more like a support or a carry. So for example, Ivy is a character right now that can play very supporty, where she doesn't need a lot of farm and she can help in teamfights a lot, right? Save teammates with the ult, come in to a big team fight and ult, silence everyone, put down AoE damage. But she can also decide if she needs to get a lot of farm, get a lot of gun items, for example, and become a gun carry, right? And that's the way she's being played right now. And both of those options are great at the current moment. And this obviously changes depending on balance, right? Like sometimes the devs decide one playstyle for a character is too good and they nerf it. But Ivy is a great example, and you can use this information to really adjust your playstyle from game to game. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you are that Ivy and you get into a game where your team has a Wraith and a 7, okay? You probably, even if you enjoy playing the hard carry Ivy playstyle, you probably do wanna give those two characters the money in that game. Why? Because they won't be able to play support, because both of those characters I just named are pretty bad if they don't get the money online, right? They can't play supporty. So in scenarios like this, if you want to win more games, you probably make the choice of, well, okay, I have 2 hard carries on my team. I'm gonna let them have most of the farm, most of the sinners. They're gonna sit side lane, and I'm gonna, help my team out more by running the urn, looking for kills, right? Helping a lot of team fights, etc. Defending a lot of objectives or pushing a lot of objectives, for example. On the same page, if you get into the game with that very same Ivy, you're the same player, and you don't have a hard carry, right? You're like, let's say you have Ivy, Paradox, Abrams, Kelvin, +2, right? Like, doesn't matter what. And you realize, wait, nobody on my team really benefits a lot from a lot of money. Then you can very easily switch to the carry playstyle and play the character as a carry. And you take the side lane and you farm a lot that game. Because because you're a smart player and you're watching this video, that you, in that game, need to farm to carry your team. Like, your team needs a reliable damage dealer, especially later in the game, right? Early game fights, it doesn't really matter for comps as much. but in late game you will need a damage dealer. So in general, when do you look for fights? As a basic piece of advice, a great time to fight is after your big power spikes. What are power spikes in this game? Power spikes are any items you buy or any level ups that give you a big boost in damage, okay? So what would that be? Let's say you farmed 6.4k on haze. You have your first few items and you buy Siphon as your first big item. That is a massive power spike for haze, right? Suddenly you're really strong. Before then you were really weak, but you're really strong after. And every character has those power spikes. And going over all of them would obviously like kind of break the scale of this video because there's a lot, right? Just know for the characters you play when your big power spike is. And usually that is when you level up your first ability to level 5, when it like does like a lot, when like you get a really great bonus effect. That's almost always a power spike on all characters. And buying bigger items is also a power spike. Just know that if you're, let's say you are 12k net worth and the enemy is 12k net worth, but you have 3k unspent, you have the potential to be a lot weaker than them, right? You don't know, unless you check the items, you don't know if the enemy spent all their money, right? Especially if they come to gank you. So just know that, I have like 3k souls unspent or 4k souls unspent right now. I should probably buy an item before I take the fight, right? So what a lot of good players do, and what you should try to do too, is spend your money before you know there's big fights coming up. How do you know when there's big fights coming up? Very easy examples. Let's say you see your support pick up the urn and your team is rotating towards the other side of the map and you're like farming somewhere in the middle. But at that point you should probably go, you decide if you want to go for the urn fight. If your team makes a call and you think it's a great idea, you probably want to go to the shop right away, buy the items and show up in that fight, right? On the other end, you can also buy the item and go for a split push on the other side of the map, right? All macro choices you can do. But you really want to be smart about when to take fights. That does not mean you shouldn't fight ever if you have money unspent, right? A lot of the time I see people that are like full HP that are like, I would rather go back to base right now and buy an item than to join the fight that is right next to them where they can very easily win, right? You would still rather have a 3v3 fight than letting your team die in a 3v2 that they're most likely gonna lose to go back to buy an item, right? And generally, joining a fight, if it's close to you, is always better than not joining a fight at all. And if you decide it's not a good idea to join the fight, if you think it's a bad fight, you still can do something with the map state. What do I mean by that? If a fight is breaking out and there's multiple people on both teams in that fight, even if you think it looks bad for your team, you should still do anything that is not farming your own jungle. Because if you're farming your own jungle, you're giving up all the advantages you're getting from having that fight. If the enemy is occupied in that fight, that means you have other options. You can push a walker, right? And put damage on a walker, kill the walker, get money that way, get your team ahead that way. If you notice there's a fight on the left side and you're on the very far right, but you notice there's at least like 4 or 5 people of the enemy team in that fight. Like, yes, you probably won't be able to get there in time to help your team, but you can very easily push the walker. And a lot of people, for whatever reason, I don't know this, maybe you could let me know in the comments, are too scared to go for that. Right? They're like, oh, there could still be 1 or 2 people showing up on my lane and defending. Chances are, most people will probably look to join that fight too, right? And if the wave is pushing into their walker, like, at worst, it's gonna be like a 1v1 for you, where one person shows up. And even if you think you can't win, right? So you show up, push the walker, and someone defends, you can still back up then, and probably be fine, because they're not going to kill you instantly in a 1v1, right, in most scenarios. So it's always better to do something with the map state, okay? If there's fights going on, split push, or at least steal the enemy jungle, right? Because that's still value for your team. You're still getting resources that you're taking away from the enemy, and you're putting it towards your team. So do anything but farming your own jungle while there's fighting going on, while there's skirmishes, okay? Even just pushing out a wave to force some other enemies to maybe rotate to the other side to defend is still better than farming your own jungle. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I see beginners do in this game. So next question that comes up a lot is, when do I push walkers? When is a good time to push walkers? In general, walkers are very hard to crack if the enemy is defending. The reason being is, walkers give passive resistances to the players that are around them on that same team, okay? So if you're fighting someone under the walker, they have a certain amount of higher bullet and spirit resist, so they're gonna be harder to kill. Plus the walker is shooting you, lasering you, or maybe stunning you if you get close, okay? So for example, if you were to, let's say the map is completely empty, you don't see any of the enemies, and your team is sitting on all lanes farming, if you decide to just randomly push a walker as like 2 people, there's almost 100% chance that the enemy is going to show up with at least 1 or 2 people, and you will risk dying or at the very least wasting your time and not getting a lot of damage on the walker. So you want to push walkers when you are up, when you have an advantage. And when do you have an advantage? Let's say you got a kill on the enemy. You killed 1 or 2 enemies, and let's say there's 2 lanes pushing into the enemy side of the map. That's the time to push for a walker, ideally multiple walkers at the same time, where 2 people of your team go left and maybe 4 people go right, and the enemy has to divert their attention to both walkers, right? That's when they will make mistakes, and that's where you can have the advantage even though they have the defender's advantage of the walkers. Another scenario I literally just mentioned before is when there's a big team fight on the other side of the map. It's a very good time to push a walker on your own, especially when you do a lot of damage to walkers, when your character does a lot of damage to walkers. Ideally, after a big team fight that you win, so let's say you're at least up 2 people, okay? So after the team fight clears, after the air clears, you're up 2 people. So let's say it's a 3v1 or a 4 versus 2. You always want to push an objective. Big exception here would be if you win a team fight like that after like the 15-minute mark. And then there's one option that I haven't talked about yet that is just better. And that is the strongest objective and the strongest buff in the game, which is mid-boss, okay? The reason I mentioned 15 minutes, roughly, is at that point in the game, the respawn time gets long enough to where your team, after winning a team fight, can reasonably kill mid-boss faster than the enemy can react with enough people, right? Where you are most likely to win a mid-boss fight even if they contest, right? So if you're up people and it's like past 15 minutes and you just want a team fight, you want to call mid for your team. And that's another point of macro, just letting your team know, making the decision for your team and being like, guys, we just want a big team fight. They're down 2 or 3 and they're going to be down for at least like 20-25 seconds. That's enough time to go mid-boss with multiple people, right? Ideally you want to send 5-6 and kill the mid-boss and get the strongest buff in the game. And I can't reiterate this enough. Mid-boss is like the strongest buff in the game right now by far. It wins or loses games. You can be behind like 10-20k as a team, and you end up winning a fight because you played well, and suddenly you can do mid-boss and you will most likely win after that mid-boss, or at least the game will be even. That's how strong mid-boss is. And if you're up 10 or 20k and you win a fight and you do mid-boss, in like 80% of games, if you played correctly after, you will not be able to lose anymore. That's how good mid-boss is, and especially after the second mid-boss is killed, where you have 4 rejuve buffs, where you have 4 free lives, and you're basically fighting in a 10 versus 6, is when you can just win the game, okay? So mid-boss is like the #1 objective in the game right now, and it's probably too strong, and it will probably get nerfed in the future, I would imagine, but it will always be the #1 objectives to get your team really far ahead, right? The risk of mid-boss is always that the enemy technically can steal it. But if the enemy is down a lot of players, it will be way less likely for the enemy to steal more than like 1 of the 3 or 4 buffs. And at that point, you just get very far ahead in the fight. Consider mid-boss after 15 minutes. And the longer you get into the game, the more you should consider mid-boss, because again, the respawn timer increases over time. So if you kill the enemy team at like 25 minutes, or you get like 2 kills at 25 minutes, they're gonna have a very long respawn time, which is gonna be more than enough time for you to kill mid-boss. There's more advanced strategy you can employ where you go into mid-boss and bait mid-boss, where you get them just to that 60% health threshold, the mid-boss, and then he screams, goes like, right, where everyone knows that mid-boss is being done. So you get them to that threshold. If you're not sure you can finish it, and then you go out as a group, as 6 ideally, and you look for more kills, right, to secure it. Because obviously there's a lot of intricacies to mid-boss as well, where there's characters like Yamato or Lash that have really good ultimates that can steal mid-boss, right? Where Yamato can become unstoppable in ult and just perma parry and like stop you from getting the heavy melees in on the rejuvenator, right? So there's more advanced technique you can do there, but for this video, in the scale of this video, I just want to mention mid-boss is OP. It should be your number one thing in your mind after like 15 to 20 minutes if you win a big team fight. On the same page, you should also be ready to contest mid-boss. Let's say you have a fight at 15 minutes and you lose the fight and you die, right? Or 2 of your teammates die. If your team is still alert, the 4 people, and you know the enemy is going to do mid-boss, you can contest, right? If you plan it correctly, and especially if you have ultimates that can stun around the rejuvenator, like Ivy. There's so many in the game, I can't name all of them, right? If you are aware of that option of the enemy, and your team gathers as 4, chances are the enemy is not going to send 6, right? Because it's a public match, unless you're a pro player, which you're probably not watching this video if you're a pro player. So chances are, you know, someone of the enemy team is going to go back into their jungle and farm, right? And then the other person is going to maybe push a lane. And then suddenly it's a 4v4 fight in mid, and you can punish the enemy, right? If you're up, try to get the entire team to do mid-boss on a general level. And if you're behind, try to be aware of that threat. So after you secure mid-boss, what do you do? Like, a lot of teams, this is the next big mistake I see a lot of people do. What happens after you get mid-boss? Let's say you have rejuve, right? I just said you should probably win the game. If you follow the next few rules, you will, okay? So hear me out. Mid-boss lasts for 4 minutes for the first buff, okay? So for 4 minutes, if anyone on your team dies, they will respawn up to 3, right? And your entire team gets fire rate, more HP, and more spirit damage, which also means you're gonna be stronger in any fight. You're just gonna feel stronger than the enemy. So do not rush objectives right after, right? Let's say you won the big fight, you secure mid-boss. Do not just run down and forget everything I just mentioned and act like you're invincible, right? That's the only way to lose, okay? What do I mean by that? Do not just push the last walker that the enemy has as 6, right? Because the enemy is only having 1 walker to defend, so they're all gonna show up as 6, and they still will have that advantage of the defender, right? Now, you have the mid-boss buffs, so it might still work out for you, but it's risky. So, what do you want to do? You have 4 minutes, you can take more space. You're safer, right? You can go more into the enemy side of the map and steal their farm, steal their jungle, and get ahead that way, right? And during that time, if you're a ganker, you can also look to get another kill, right? And then we repeat what we just learned, where after you get that kill, then you can start like pushing more objectives, right? Or then you can start pushing into the enemy base. A lot of the time, a very normal example I see is you kill the enemy walkers, right? You're ahead, you get the mid-boss, and then, you know, your entire team is like, oh, we're 6 people, we have mid-boss, let's just push the enemy base. And the enemy has 6 people to defend. This could still backfire, right? The enemy base is the hardest thing to crack in the game, and it's close to their spawn, right? There's ults like Lash ult that can throw you into the enemy spawn, and the enemy has the defender's advantage. So even at that point, if you're not incredibly far ahead, right? Like if you're not like 40k souls plus ahead, you still wanna play it safe as the winning team and farm their jungle and then look for a kill, right? You have 4 minutes, you have time with the mid-boss. Look for a kill or 2, and then again, because you're up, you can very safely start attacking the enemy base and start taking shrines and downing the Patreon, etc. Right? So take your time with the mid-boss and play the game the same way. Which brings me to like an overall macro concept that I think is really important, which is if you're ahead, you should play really safe, and the more you're behind, the riskier you have to play, okay? Most people think it's the other way around, where it's like, oh, I'm ahead in money, I'm very strong, right? I can play more risky. But the thing is, there's a thing called comeback gold in this game. Comeback gold basically works, any source of souls that you get while being behind, that is earn, that is enemy hero kills. If you're behind, you get more of those. It's like a comeback mechanic. Which means if you're ahead, you get less, right? Compared to the enemy. So you don't want to take even trades when you're ahead. Which means if you're ahead, you want to play safer, right? You are more powerful, but you don't want to run headfirst into the enemy. But on the same page, if you're behind, if you just sit on your base, like the average player, right? Oh my god, they have rejuve and they're up like 10k. we shouldn't fight, right? That's always what I hear everyone say. And sometimes that's true. But a lot of the time, the only way to come back is like leaving your base as 6 and then looking for that enemy kill, right? Maybe getting one rejuve early. Maybe killing someone twice, right? The same person can't be respawned twice with rejuve. So maybe you go out into your jungle as 6 as the team that's behind. You find a kill early and suddenly make the fight a 6v5. Now the enemy might still have rejuve and you might still lose the fight, but every fight you don't take as a team that's behind is like one step closer to losing, right? If the people that are ahead play properly, you can't really come back as a team that's behind. So you have to start playing a bit more risky and going for something when you're behind. That's how comebacks happen. Comebacks do not happen by you just sitting in your base. Unless the enemy is stupid and runs into you, but then they misplayed as well, right? You can't rely on that. So if you want to be in control of your own destiny, you should really think of it in terms of numbers. If I just sit in base and do nothing and the enemy is ahead and they're taking my entire jungle, right? There's like a 5% chance I win if the enemy is really stupid and runs into you head first. But 95% of the time you lost. Whereas, okay, maybe if I tell my team, let's look for a kill, right? Like we're behind, but if we get a kill, we can maybe turn the game around. Maybe your win rate or your chances of winning go up to like 20 or 30%, right? You're still behind. You're still more likely to lose than to win if you're behind. That's just what being behind means in this game. But you're gonna up your chances of winning and not down your chances of winning. Now that's not to say, oh, we're down, let's run around as 6 and just throw, right? You need to take smart fights, which means don't just push an objective if you're behind, right, as 6. Look for a kill in the enemy that is farming your jungle, that is being greedy, that kind of stuff, right? Look for a favorable fight where, let's say you see the enemy carry that has the most money sitting on a side lane, right? On the left side. And you are in your base as 6. But on the other side of the map you see like 2 other people. You can go as 6 and attack those other people because you know that hyper carry is on the other side of the map, right? On the left side. Which will give you the best chance of winning that fight, right? Oh, their carry is not there. We can take that fight right now and increase our chances of winning. And that's what most people don't do, even in high rank, because they're too scared. They're like, oh, we're behind. We should probably just sit in base. The base will not save you if the enemy is playing it correctly in the long run, is what I'm trying to say. Another thing you can do if you want to come back, if you're behind, is the comeback urn. Obviously, urn has 3 different drop spots, right? One is forward to the enemy, one is in the middle, and one is on your side of the map. And if you're more than 10% of souls behind, when you first pick up the urn, the drop spot will be on your side. And again, the urn will give you comeback gold. So another way to come back is, if you want to help out your team, is you wait for the urn to spawn. Ideally, you have the control of that lane at that time, even if you're behind. You pick up the urn and deposit it on your side of the map. And that is usually pretty safe, right? It's pretty deep into your territory. And if the enemy tries to contest you, they're gonna have a harder time, right? So comeback urns are a great way to come back as well. Even fights are still good if you're behind, right? If you know you're gonna get into a fight and the most likely scenario is you will die, but you will also get one enemy kill. That's good for your team. Because again, you're behind, so you'll get more gold from the kill on the enemy hero than they will get on you. Do not worry about your KD. Do not worry about, oh, I don't want to die here, right? What you should think of is, wait, I will give my team more money this way, even if I die, and that's good for my team. Same for a walker. Let's say you're behind and your team is struggling, fighting on one side of the map, and you are pushing a walker. If you get that walker kill, that's a way for your team to get back into the game. Even if you die for it, 100% worth it. And that's the end of the macro guide. And I'm sure I didn't cover everything. So please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And if there's more in-depth topics you want me to get into, please let me know as well. The next video we're gonna release is gonna go all over roles, right? I kinda addressed them a bit in this video because roles kinda determine what you wanna do. So that's gonna be kind of part 2 of the macro guide. But also if you wanna know, wait, is the character I'm playing a carry or support? Do I wanna farm a lot or do I wanna do this, right? Like, That's going to be addressed in the next video, so watch out for that. And yeah, hope that was informative. Until next time, see you friends. Bye bye.